Kevin Martin's story is one of the strangest and most fascinating in modern NBA history. On the surface, he seemed like the last guy you'd expect to become one of the league's most efficient scorers. His shooting form looked broken, his body was skinny, and his game felt unorthodox compared to the polished textbook scorers of his era. Yet, for nearly a decade, Martin not only proved the doubters wrong, but did so in ways that redefined how we think about scoring. At his peak, he was dropping 40, even 50 points, outpacing stars with perfect form, and making defenses pay with a skill set that blended awkward mechanics, brilliant efficiency, and a knack for manipulating defenders into fouling him. But just as quickly as he rose, a rule change, combined with injuries and bad luck, would derail his career and send him into near obscurity. To understand how Kevin Martin carved out one of the most unusual yet impactful careers in the NBA, we need to rewind to where it all began. Kevin Dallas Martin Jr. grew up in Zanesville, Ohio, a town of less than 30,000 people. Like most kids of the 1990s, he idolized Michael Jordan, spending nights glued to Bulls games and days trying to replicate those same moves on his local courts. Unlike most kids, however, Martin had the height, the motor, and the work ethic to turn those dreams into something real. By the time he reached high school, he stood at 6'7", but weighed barely 185 pounds. He was tall and wiry, but he had one gift no coach could teach: the ability to score. That talent earned him a Division I scholarship at Western Carolina, a tiny program in an even smaller town than the one he came from. There, Martin lit up scoreboards, but his form was impossible to ignore. His shot looked like something out of a backyard pickup game, slung from his chest with an awkward release. Scouts and analysts questioned whether it could ever translate to the NBA, but Martin didn't care. His eyes were on the league, and by the end of his junior season, he declared for the 2004 draft. When the Sacramento Kings used their 26th pick to select him, many fans and analysts scoffed. Sacramento had been a powerhouse in the early 2000s with stars like Chris Webber, Peja Stojakovic, and Mike Bibby. But this was a team in transition, and here they were, investing in a scrawny guard with a broken jump shot. Could this kid really succeed in the NBA? Early on, it didn't look like it. Martin spent most of his rookie year glued to the bench, and when he did play, his numbers were underwhelming. 33% shooting from the field, just 20% from deep. His form looked even stranger against the size and speed of NBA defenders. Sacramento's coach Rick Adelman didn't even include Martin on the playoff roster that year. His rookie season ended not with a breakout, but with him in street clothes watching the Kings lose in the first round. But then came opportunity. In his second season, injuries opened the door. Bonzi Wells went down, and suddenly Martin was thrust into a starting role. What followed was the first glimpse of what made him special. Yes, his form looked ugly, but the results were undeniable. He scored efficiently, leaned into his wiry frame to attack the rim, and most importantly, mastered a skill that would define his career: drawing fouls. Martin developed a signature move where he'd pump fake, wait for defenders to bite, and then leap into contact. He wasn't the first to use this trick, but few players in NBA history weaponized it as ruthlessly as Martin. He'd go to the line 10, 12, sometimes 15 times a night, knocking them down with mechanical consistency. By the middle of his sophomore season, he was putting up 20-point nights with ease. And in a must-win playoff game against the San Antonio Spurs, he hit a game-winning layup that sent Kings fans into a frenzy. Suddenly, Sacramento had unearthed a gem. When Bonzi Wells turned down a contract extension to leave the Kings, the starting shooting guard spot was Martin's for good. And with it, his scoring averages exploded. Under new coach Eric Musselman, Martin was given the greenest of lights, and he didn't waste it. In the 2006-07 season, he averaged over 20 points per game, shooting an absurdly efficient 47% from the field and 38% from three. He wasn't just scoring. He was doing it at a level reserved for elite stars despite his broken mechanics. That year, he dropped 40 in a game and established himself as one of the league's premier scorers. Sacramento rewarded him with a $55 million extension, seemingly securing their future centerpiece. But just as Martin was peaking, disaster struck. In 2007-08, he tore his groin, missing significant time. Injuries became a theme for Martin. Every time he seemed ready to elevate his game to the next level, his body betrayed him. Still, whenever he was on the court, the numbers were jaw-dropping. He scored 48 points against Minnesota, 45 against Indiana, and even hit the 50-point milestone against Golden State. His free throw attempts skyrocketed. Martin led the league in free throws made per game at over 8 per night. Yet all of it felt bittersweet. Sacramento was crumbling around him, changing coaches almost yearly and sinking further into irrelevance. Martin was pouring in points, but the wins weren't coming. He was a star trapped on a sinking ship. Eventually, the Kings cut ties, trading him to the Houston Rockets in 2010. In Houston, Martin picked up right where he left off, averaging over 20 a night and giving the team a desperately needed scoring punch. Without Yao Ming, Houston was floundering. But Martin's scoring was electric. He put up 33 against San Antonio, 39 against his former Kings, and had 20 games of 30-plus points in 2010-11. But then came the moment that changed everything, the 2011 lockout. When the NBA returned, it came with a new emphasis on cleaning up the game. Officials were instructed not to reward foul-baiting moves, the very skill Martin had mastered. Overnight, his free throw attempts plummeted. The thing that had made him so devastating, his ability to manipulate defenses and live at the line, was stripped away. Martin's numbers declined, and his role diminished. In 2012, he was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder in the blockbuster James Harden deal. Oklahoma City wanted Martin to be the perfect sixth man, spacing the floor and scoring in bursts. And at first, he was brilliant, dropping 28 points on 72% shooting in one early game, then lighting up the playoffs with efficient performances. But when Russell Westbrook went down with a knee injury, the Thunder's championship hopes collapsed, and Martin's scoring wasn't enough to carry them. That offseason, he walked away, unwilling to accept a reduced bench role, and signed with the Minnesota Timberwolves to play alongside Kevin Love. In Minnesota, Martin kept scoring efficiently. He once dropped 37 points while playing with a fractured wrist, but the team was mired in mediocrity. Injuries continued to pile up, robbing him of his athleticism and consistency. By the time he landed with the San Antonio Spurs in 2016, the end was near. Once signed as the missing piece to push them past Golden State, Martin struggled, averaging just 6 points on poor shooting. By the playoffs, he was barely seeing the floor. And just like that, one of the most efficient scorers of his generation faded quietly into retirement. Kevin Martin never won a championship, never made an all-star team, and rarely entered the spotlight. He didn't have the accolades of the superstars he outscored nightly, but his impact was undeniable. He showed that basketball wasn't just about form or aesthetics. It was about results. His shot was ugly, but it worked. His ability to draw fouls was mocked, but it made him elite. And while the rule changes and injuries ultimately derailed his career, his peak years remain a testament to efficiency and ingenuity. So how do we remember Kevin Martin? Was he one of the league's most underrated bucket getters, a scorer who would thrive even more in today's three-point heavy era? Or was he a player who piled up stats on bad teams, destined to be forgotten once the spotlight dimmed? Whatever the answer, one thing is certain. For a time, Kevin Martin turned awkwardness into artistry, and the NBA had never seen anything quite like it.